Hey guys, in this tutorial I'll be showing you how you can turn a raw print like this into a beautiful finished prop like this. So I'll be going through all the steps of printing, sanding, priming, and painting this. So you can turn this into this. And I'll be using this as to get that shiny chrome finish. So this you can get on Amazon, and yeah, so first things first, let's jump into the slicer. So this is the model I'm going to be using by Lex 3D. It's extremely accurate to the screenshots I managed to grab from the trailer. Yeah, overall, it's a really good model. I only about $5 Canadian, so I really recommend getting it, and this is what we'll be using. So I'll be printing this on my Bambu Lab P1P, and it's my favorite printer I've used so far. So go ahead and drop in the model. So as you can see, the model would put it on like it's an angle like this. And when you printed that, it left a bunch of supports and overhangs on the side, which didn't look too nice once you sanded it and wanted to get a nice crisp blade edge. So what I ended up doing is rotating it and then standing it up just kind of straight like this. And then I also ended up changing it to 25 centimeters instead of the 21 it was originally set to. Quality, I just did a fine quality, just prevents a little bit more sanding that you have to do. All that's the same. And then I also ended up rotating it like this, and then positioning the Z seam behind it. So then it would just be here, and you can sand it off really easily. And because I wanted to be heavier and able to like swing on a rope, I changed it to 100% infill. And then also change the number of walls to 5. Then speed, all that speed setting is the same. Enable supports. I end up changing this to about 35. And then I also end up painting on custom supports right here and here. And then that just prevented some of the Z wobble. Once it got up higher, about here, it started swaying back and forth a little bit and giving it like some weird Z banding. And then all that. Most of the settings I left default because Bambu has really good default settings. The printer prints beautifully every time. And then just hit slice. So 6.5 hours for the full kunai. You can see these help just support it, and the support just break off, so looks really nice once it's printed. This is make sure it has a good foundation. What I like to do is go down and see the initial layers starting to print up. Make sure it's got great support, and as it builds up, you can see, so that looks good. And then you can also see the seam just on the back here, which just easily sands out and you couldn't even tell it's there. So yeah, this looks pretty good, and I think I'm gonna print it. As you can see, it's printed beautifully on my P1P. So normally the next step would be to take some 180 grit sandpaper and go over this whole thing, trying to remove any of the bigger layer lines I see off of this print. But since it's printed smooth enough, I can actually just use 220 grit sandpaper and go over this whole thing. So I want to make sure I'm getting into all of these little cracks here, into the top of this ring here. Anywhere I see any layer lines, I want to make sure I get rid of those. Once I think I've gotten enough of that off, that's when I'll hit it with that first coat of primer, and that'll show me any other areas I need to sand. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over this whole thing. I'm going to make sure I take my time getting rid of any of these imperfections I see. Try to make this as smooth as possible before I hit it with the primer. So I'm going to do that, and I'll get back to you guys. So this is what it looks like after that first layer of primer goes on. So the primer I always use is this red DupliColor filler primer. They have a gray one as well, but that one tends to gunk up the sandpaper, while the red one sands a lot more easier. So I always go for the red one when I can. Sometimes it's out of stock and I will use the gray one, but when I can, I use this red one. So once it's covered in primer, you can still see some of the smaller layer lines up here and just a bunch more spots that I still have to go through and sand. So after that initial layer of priming, then it'll show you all the imperfections you still have to sand. So I'm going to go through that and then repeat that process back and forth between sanding, priming, till you get that nice smooth finish. Because once I apply the graphite rub, they'll give it that metallic look. It's going to show any of those lines you might have missed. So make sure you take your time with these steps. Okay, so now that I hit it with a nice gloss black, I'm going to go over that with some graphite rub. So you can get it on Amazon. So all I'm going to do is cotton balls, go over this whole thing. And this is the finished product. So you can see it gives a really nice shiny metallic look. It's a really good way to get a nice chrome finish for any blade, and this is the first time I used it. I also see people use it for Mandalorian armor, stuff like that, and this turned out really good. So yeah, there's not really a way to clear coat this with just conventional spray cans. You can, I've seen people use like a spray gun to manage to get that with some 2K finish, but I don't think I'm gonna do that. I think it turned out well enough, and over time, if it does start to wear off, I can just apply more and make sure it keeps that nice chrome finish. So yeah, this looks really good, and I'm really happy with this finished product. So in the end, I'm really happy with how this prop turned out, and it goes perfect with this scorpion mask. So this is going to be my next video, how I made this. I'll go through all the steps for this one, but thank you for watching, and if you like it, and leave a comment what else I should build.